preserving the sanctity of life in Florida. A loud voice for the unborn. This is Pro-Life Radio with your hosts, Vicky and Bruce Cherry.
And welcome to another edition of Pro-Life Radio, and very important information we're going to be sharing with you this evening on the show, so listen very closely. But of course, across from me, my lovely bride, Vicky Cherry. I'm
Hello.
Bruce Cherry, and we are in the John Barrows Memorial Studio here at WORL, and we've got a very special guest with us tonight, John Stemberger, who is the president of the Liberty Counsel Action Ministries. And John's got some very important stuff to share with us. But first, we always start with Jeremiah 1:5 and prayer.
Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I sanctified you. I ordained you a prophet to the nations.
Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you again to beseech you to bless us, to bless all who are on this show and all who are hearing this show. Give us the words to share, and let us be about sharing truth and opening eyes and opening hearts to understand just how precious life is, and to understand that no one has a right to end what you have ordained to be. God, please bless this show and all who hear it, and thank you for this opportunity once again for Pro-Life Radio. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
John, thanks for joining us. I know you're taking some time out, and because you were always busy. I know last, a week or two ago, you were in D.C. at the White House. So tell us about what's in our drinking water, because that's I kind of buried the lead. There's something in our drinking water that we never would have suspected is there.
Well, thanks for having me on the show, Bruce and Vicky. I'm not sure of how many radio programs are devoted to just the life issue in America, but what you're doing is a great work, and I really appreciate this effort.
Thank you.
So the reality of it is that it used to be, most people, when they think of abortion, they think of an abortion clinic, they think of a quote-unquote doctor, they think of going to a building, right? But that is not the case anymore. One of the biggest changes in the last 20 years is that now the primary form of abortion for unborn children and to kill them is chemical abortion. This involves a woman taking a pill, mifepristone, which basically blocks the progesterone from that woman, which cuts off the nourishment from the child and basically kills it within less than 24 hours, sometimes a little bit more. And then the second drug that they're given, basically, and sometimes that's enough to just expel the child, but the second drug basically forces the woman to give birth to that child. And the problem is that in every abortion clinic in America, when the abortion is taking place in the brick and mortar building, they have to, by state law and federal laws as well, Clean Water Act, et cetera, they have to actually dispose of those fetal remains. And I hate to use words that are going to sound like they devalue the dignity and the worth of that unborn child. But basically that's considered medical waste. That's biohazard waste. It would be like if a hospital just started flushing stuff down the toilet. But that's what they're instructing women to do. So in an abortion clinic, they have to collect that. If you saw the movie Unplanned, you saw that big barrel that came up to the service. They hire a medical waste service that takes the waste. Same things with hospitals. And they go and incinerate it in a proper manner under law and for hygiene purposes.
Mm-hmm.
But with chemical abortions, and we're talking about the last estimate was 64%, according to the Guttmacher Institute, which is Planned Parenthood's own research study. We believe it's somewhere around 70% now because of all the increase since 2003, and also because of just the illegal pills that are flowing. But we think up to 70% of women, you're talking about 700,000 a year women giving birth to a dead baby in their toilet. This is the reality. We know this is happening. This is the fact. And you're talking about developing cranial structures, sinew, cartilage, placenta, blood. Students for Life estimates somewhere between 30 to 40 tons of medical waste, unborn children, being dumped into the toilet. This is going into either city water systems, water treatment plants, or it's going into local septic tanks, which then have to be emptied and go into city water treatment plants. These plants were never designed, ever, to handle human waste. I mean, the EPA, Bruce, says we shouldn't even be flushing baby wipes down the toilet. Yet we're flushing babies down the toilet, living human beings that are dying and then flushing them down. It's really tragic. And so we have to ask ourselves, what is the impact to the water? Nobody's talking about this, but once you see this issue, Vicky, you can't unsee it. It literally is right before our eyes. It's happening silently, but it's happening. And we have to ask, what is the impact to our water? So that's the issue in a nutshell. The second issue, other than the fetal remains and the baby itself, which is not appropriate for a water treatment plant, and they don't have ways to actually remove them exactly. So most of it is removed. They have kind of a first kind of screening of sludge and things.
Mm-hmm.
But there are microparticles of skin and things just are going to get through that they're not able to capture unless the water treatment plant. And many of them are not sophisticated. They're very unconventional. They're very antiquated. They're not highly technologically state of the art. Most of these water treatment plants because they're very, very expensive to upgrade. So basically, the second thing is the mifepristone. Now, mifepristone is a synthetic drug. It is not an organic drug. It does not dissolve and is not absorbed by the woman when it goes to his body. So it has a life. It forms what's called three active metabolites. And a metabolite is something that stays active. Okay, so that mifepristone retains its therapeutic effect, which is to destroy progesterone. So it becomes a lethal drug for any person that has it in their system, especially a woman who's developing a new birth and a new child. So this becomes a real problem for us because we don't know, and there's a lot of questions we don't have answers to because none of this has been studied at all. In the year 2000, there's this group called the Population, and I'm just rambling on here. You can stop me and have questions if you have questions, but there's a group called the Population Control Group, and the Population Council is basically a nonprofit. It's a pro-abortion, huge, worldwide pro-abortion kind of leftist think tank, and it's kind of fueled by guys like Bill Gates and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
They do a lot of some good work, but they also do a lot of stuff like pro-abortion stuff. So they proposed mifepristone in the year 2000. Well, you're supposed to do an environmental assessment under the FDA for any drug that's approved. Well, all they did is said, well, it's not going to have that much impact. Why? Because nobody was using it back then, right? It was like literally just RU-486 has just come out,
Mm-hmm.
not a big deal. And they looked at the packaging, they looked at some of the manufacturing effects of going into the air or the water, things like that. And they just determined, just kind of willy-nilly, without any doing actual studies, of it's not going to have any effect upon the environment.
So
well,
do you think, John, do you think the FDA is at fault? Did they drop the ball, or are they breaking the law? You know what?
No, they're absolutely breaking the law because and the problem is this: the Clean Water Act requires any change in the drugs. So not only did they not do a correct environmental assessment where they actually studied the impact of the water. And the problem is this: the FDA is concerned about the drug and the human being, but the EPA should be concerned about the environment. Well, the FDA, they don't care about the natural, logical result is that this is going to go in the toilet.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody said anything about it because, no impact. So it's kind of like they were both just looking at each other, and so it was never actually studied.
And like a lot of issues with abortion, nobody wants to talk about the hidden side because they don't want anybody to say it's anything wrong with abortion. So we don't talk about the mental health of the mother after the abortion or things like this because that would bring it out into the open.
Well, speak of mental health, imagine the shock that millions of women have now experienced in seeing a fully formed baby in their toilet.
Mm-hmm. Or bringing it into I've heard many pregnancy centers, they would bring them in there and say, I didn't think it would look like this, devastating.
That's right. I mean, this is a separate topic, but still relevant. The psychological damage to a woman is exponentially more greater with chemical abortion than with a surgical abortion. With a surgical abortion, there's some other third party actively killing your baby, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have attendants there. There's at least support of medical, quote-unquote, medical people around. You may be able to have somebody there. With a chemical abortion, you're talking about a woman who's giving birth by herself alone in a bathroom, in a toilet, in a process that could take days, sometimes even weeks of hemorrhaging. So this is a very grisly thing. The woman is by herself. The bathroom then becomes a trigger for the rest of her life. That bathroom in her home is the site where she destroyed her unborn child. So the psychological place of a bathroom being a place of rest and just, a place to do your business now becomes a trigger, psychological trigger for that woman. So chemical abortion is horrible in terms of the impact. There's been over 500% increase in emergency room visits. The problem is emergency rooms, a lot of times the women want to lie. They don't want to say, I just trying to kill my baby and I'm hemorrhaging and whatever. But they have to go to the emergency room because they're hemorrhaging too much. And then the hospitals don't ask good questions, so they just list it as a miscarriage. And it's not a miscarriage, it's a chemical abortion. So we don't even have good numbers on that, but the numbers we do have is a 500% increase in women going to the emergency room because of chemical abortions.
John, question. Are the hospitals willfully listing it as a miscarriage, or do they not want to list it as an abortion to slant the numbers, or are they being misled by the women who come in and say, it's both?
It's both. Yeah, you have complicity on the hospital who often doesn't want to ask the difficult questions to increase the trauma or whatever. They may just ask an open question, not even a pointed question, right? What's going on? And then the woman, of course, most are not going to want to admit they just try to kill their baby through a chemical abortion. So oftentimes, and there's no research on this, this is just anecdotal, but it's just from our own experience and from the testimony of women who have gone through the process, they often lie and just say the miscarriage.
John, we're up against a break. If you can stick around, we hope you can, because I've got a slew of questions. And one of them, how did we get here? Mail order abortion pills, isn't that illegal? Isn't it against the law? So we're going to take a break. We're going to be right back with John Stemberger, president of the Liberty Counsel Action. There's something in our drinking water, and it's related to abortion. We'll continue with this in just a bit on AM 950, FM 94.9. The Answer, it is pro-life radio on a Sunday night. We're back on a Sunday night, pro-life radio, streaming live on theanswerorlando.com. Vicky Cherry, I'm Bruce Cherry, and we have John Stemberger, president of the Liberty Counsel Action Ministries. And the question I asked when we went to break, isn't it illegal for abortion pills to be sent in the mail?
Well, yes. Many, many years ago, a law called the Comstock Act was passed by Congress, and it prohibits the mailing of chemical abortion drugs. The problem is the law is no good if everybody ignores it and nobody's willing to enforce it. And so when the Population Council went to the FDA, in essence, they were asking for an exception, right? And so the FDA has the ability to approve drugs. And so initially, right, these are being distributed. So if we're going to have chemical abortions, right, we need to do it in the safest way possible and the most humane way possible. So like here in Florida, for instance, we have very strict laws. A doctor has to administer this drug. Why? Well, first of all, you need to know the gestational age of the child. You're not supposed to be giving these drugs past 7 or 8 weeks. To give them to a child that's too older, it could cause real serious problems, sickness to the mother, a real dangerous situation. Or there's an ectopic pregnancy, you could literally threaten the life of the mother and have an emergency hospital visit, ER visit automatically, like that. So there's a lot of reasons why you have to take the first pill first, second pill second. There's a lot of reasons why you want a doctor's oversight. But what's happening now is more and more Planned Parenthood is just like, oh yeah, take this pill, go home and empty your uterus out in the toilet. That's what they're basically saying. And for those who are just joining the show, what we're talking about is abortion in our water, and the fact that 700,000 women a year are giving birth to dead babies in their toilet, which is ending up in city water treatment plants and eventually in our tap water. And there's both medical waste, which is a problem, and the second problem is the mifepristone, which is an active metabolite, has a life of its own, it continues on. Now, Bruce, what we've also seen is that there's been an increase in the infertility rate, the rate of people not being able to have children, both men and women. This increase is coming at the same time and it's almost the same rate as mifepristone and chemical abortions are coming on the rise. Literally, if you look at the chart, the increase in the chart looks almost exactly the same. So it does look like there's a correlation because if you have this drug as intended, what to do? Block progesterone. Yeah, block progesterone. You can't give birth to a child. You can't even conceive a child because of lack of progesterone or the blocking of the progesterone by the mifepristone. Now, we don't know this because we don't have studies. But this is exactly what we're asking the FDA to do. What we're asking the EPA to do is we have to study this. We don't know anything about it. We know it's there in trace elements. We know it's affected some fish life, but we don't know in what levels. You know, if you have a city like, and it may be different. If you have a city like Austin, Texas, which is a desert, and they recycle their water, there's no active bodies of water, high populations, a liberal city, you're going to have more abortions, more chemical abortions, right? There's more intensity there. Same thing with like Los Angeles. But if you go to a city out in the Midwest where there's not that big of a population, maybe not so much. But we don't know any answers because nothing's ever been studied. And every time there's a change, like when the FDA approved this drug from 7 weeks to 10 weeks, right, to take for the unborn child, to kill it, they should have studied that. Why? Because it would have represented an increase in the amount of abortions, the amount of mifepristone, the amount of human waste going into the water system. But they never studied it again. At least 7 places they should have studied it when they changed the law, and they've completely and utterly failed to do that. Now, these are mainly under, Obama administrations and things like that. We're asking the Trump administration, I know he has a nuanced position regarding chemical abortion, which is unfortunate, but he's also said, look, we want crystal clear, clean drinking water. He said it 5 different times on the campaign trails in major speeches, literally holding up bottles of water, glasses of water. And so we're appealing to him saying, look, you have to look at this, Mr. President, because once you look at it, you can't unsee it.
You can't unsee it, yeah.
Now, do you have a bill going into the legislation?
There's recently a bill that was filed that relates to this issue. It has several sponsors. We'll have to see. But, yes, we are looking into everything. We're looking into agencies enforcing the Clean Water Act and the Environmental Protection Act. We're looking into bills. We're asking Congress to hold hearings. We're appealing to the White House. There's a lot of different activities going on. Students for Life has been in this space for about 5 years and has done great work. And we're coming alongside them and adding to what they're doing as well. And this is a big deal. Look, I mean, if we can, I know there's a lot of problems in the world. You've got the war in Iraq. You've got, rioting because of the immigration thing. You've got the big, beautiful bill. But if we can show that Planned Parenthood is the Joker and the Joker is poisoning Gotham's water supply, it's like, wait a second. This is like in the top 5 issues in our country. It has to be.
Absolutely. It's a threat to our health and to generations to come.
What about people that say, "Oh, I'll just drink bottled water"?
Yeah, I'm not an expert on that. I do know that spring water is probably your best bet because it comes from a fresh aquifer. A lot of bottled water is just tap water. It's all it is.
Yeah. Well, and that's
filter.
what I was wondering because it wouldn't be taking out these chemicals, right?
Yeah, depending on the level of the filter, it may or may not be able to get out the pharmaceuticals like the mifepristone in the filtering process. So there's a lot that needs to be done. But we just have to halt this drug. We have to study it. There's some solutions that have come up with other than stopping chemical abortions altogether. I mean, honestly, and I'm very pro-life. I think abortion is an abomination, all of it. But surgical abortions are much safer and less traumatic to the woman than chemical abortions. Chemical abortions are horrible, and they're increasing. I mean, in some Scandinavian countries, they don't even do surgical abortion. In Europe, the rates of the pill, the chemical abortion pill, is just rising way beyond. So the trend nationwide, statewide, and worldwide is basically increasing chemical abortion. So we have to look at this and we have to shut it down, I think.
And if you look at it from a standpoint like Planned Parenthood would, it's cheaper to go the route of the chemical abortion rather than having surgical equipment and sterilizing equipment for the instruments that you're using and disposal and things like that. They just give a woman a pill. They still charge the same amount for the abortion and send her on her way. And meanwhile, within 24, 48, 72 hours, she's going to give birth to a dead child in her bathroom at home, alone, most likely.
That's right.
Yeah. Hey,
and they're violating state laws regarding proper disposal of human remains. I mean, if you're inside the clinic, they dispose of it properly, but they're instructing these abortion providers, both the manufacturer of the pill and local Planned Parenthoods, are saying, go home and deliver your baby to the toilet. They're instructing them to do this. They should be held accountable for violating human waste laws, for violating environmental protection laws. I mean, we need to hold these abortion people accountable for this because they're instructing the mother to do this.
You know, I'm looking at a letter here on your website. Environmental protection efforts are necessary to counter the potential harm that chemical abortion drugs are creating for our people, wildlife, and ecosystems. The American people deserve to know the negative effects caused by chemical abortion. That was written by a man who has become a huge hero of mine, and that is former Senator Marco Rubio, who is now our Secretary of State. And so, yeah, we do deserve to know what's in our water, and we deserve to know that that water is going to be pure and clean for us to drink, whether it's out of the tap or we're getting it out of a bottle. And this is unacceptable. But of course, the evil that lurks in our society, that Planned Parenthood and people who are population control nuts, and like you said something a little while ago, I really wanted to call you on the carpet on it a little bit, and I mean nothing personal. I love you to death, John. You talked about the population control group. You said they do some good work. I can't imagine what that would be.
What is that good work, John?
Well, it's not strictly a pro-abortion group. They do some work in third world countries regarding HIV and things like that.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay. I just wanted you to clarify that is what I wanted.
Yeah,
So.
It's a huge conglomerate. It's not just pro-abortion group. If you look on their website, they have millions and millions of dollars globally funding all kinds of stuff. I don't have time to study all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Most of it's left wing, obviously, climate control, that kind of thing. But there are a couple of good projects that they do. But yeah, I don't want to put any halo on them. They certainly deserve more.
Now, what is the website where people can go and study this? Because you've got a website up.
Yeah, abortioninourwater.org. That's abortioninourwater.org. We have the recent report we've released, 77 pages, 339 footnotes. This is the most comprehensive academic white paper ever written on the topic by Abigail Foreman, Jonathan Alexander, and our team, Alyssa, our team at Liberty Counsel Action. There's also simple one-page flyers where you can understand the issue in one page, diagrams. We have talking points, different things, interviews that have been done. So all the information you could need is right there. We really want to sound the alarm and let every American know that abortion is in your water, and we have to do everything we can to stop it, get the EPA to do their job, and get the FDA to do their job.
So even if you are for abortion, I would think that thought that what is in our water would bother you also, right?
Well, that's right. That's right. The water is not a partisan issue. It's not a political issue. It's a human issue, and everybody should be interested in it and concerned about it. Now, there's a lot of people poo-pooing this, going, "Oh yeah, we got a bunch of stuff in our water." Well, you know what? This is the only drug that, number one, is lethal to a developing human being and a woman, and perhaps in a man as well, his reproductive support. And number two, it's the only drug that produces fetal waste, literally produces an abortion and produces a baby who's dead within the mother. So that makes it very, very different than other pharmaceuticals.
Absolutely.
Well, John, we're going to take another break here, and we're going to come right back and just continue with this. Abortion in our water. We have John Stemberger as our guest tonight on Pro-Life Radio. We are streaming live on theanswerorlando.com, and we'll be right back. If you like this show and you want to keep this ministry going on the air, we need your help. We have details coming on how you can donate and help keep Pro-Life Radio out there, sharing truth and changing minds. Coming up on AM 950 and FM 94.9, The Answer. And we're back on a Sunday night, Pro-Life Radio, abortion in our water. It sends chills up my spine to hear that and to think I'm actually saying that, but this is what this show's about tonight. It's true. And Vicky Cherry, I'm Bruce Cherry, and we have John Stemberger with us tonight.
Well, and I was going to say, too, Bruce, a couple of weeks ago we were out trying to do the defund Planned Parenthood rally. And, even if you are somebody that thinks abortion is okay, I would think you would want the choice of if your money's going to it or not. And like, I wouldn't want to pay for somebody to have a transition. Why would I want to pay for somebody to have an abortion or a lot of other things? It's just crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not opposed to men getting their ears pierced. I don't want to pay for it. That sort of thing.
And I definitely do not want any of my money to go towards abortion. It's totally against my whole being.
Yeah.
It is not what God wants. And to think that our tax dollars are going to that, and it's happening. Like at the tune of like $800 million or something. I mean, it's ridiculous.
If we ever stood a chance of stopping that, we do now with President Trump in the office. So that's a good thing.
So, John, we are back on with John. And can you tell us what's the difference between chemical abortion and a miscarriage at home?
Well, yeah, that's one kind of thing that a lot of people say on the other side is, hey, this is no different than people miscarrying. And I understand there's three differences. Number one, the biggest difference is in a miscarriage, there's no lethal chemical drug that's being dispersed into the water system. Okay? That's the biggest thing. Secondly, a miscarriage is spontaneous. The woman didn't want this. She can't help it. In a chemical abortion, it's intentional. It can be mitigated. It can be stopped either through education of that woman or through the force of public policy and regulation. So we can stop chemical abortions. You can't stop miscarriages. They're spontaneous. The woman has nothing to say about it. No choice in the matter. And then finally, women that are having babies, that's a valuable thing inside them. That is not a blob of tissue. That's a beautiful life growing inside them. And so oftentimes they'll go to the hospital, right? They're not just sitting on their toilet going, oh, they dump this in the toilet. They're going to the hospital. They want to get care. They want to save the life of the child. And then oftentimes, if they can, if it does happen in their home, they retain that child. I mean, you go through any cemetery, you can see literally they've buried babies who were just made it for days or didn't make it, and they have literally tombstones representing these children's lives, or cremating them and putting them. And they realize these are valuable children. These are human beings made in the image and likeness of God. So that mother is very different from the mother just says, hey, I want to just destroy this thing and put it in the toilet. So those three things distinguish miscarriages, which there's a lot of, from chemical abortions, which are just it's a disturbing fact, especially when you consider the fact that this waste is going into our water systems, which are not designed to take out fully either the human waste, right, the cartilage, the blood, the placenta, or not designed to take out the mifepristone, which is a lethal drug to a woman's body who is attempting to give birth or have a child.
Have you heard about the it's all over Facebook about Kat Kamrick and her ectopical pregnancy? Do you know anything about that situation?
Yeah, I read briefly about it. I don't have an in-depth knowledge about it, but it's unfortunate that they're making such a big deal about that. I would even question how it went down. I'm not sure they got the facts right, but it's yeah.
Well, it seems the hospital thinks that providing care for an atopical pregnancy is tantamount to performing an abortion.
That's not true.
And that's not true because her life was at risk. And everything that all the pro-choice people are about, well, if a woman's life is at risk, that sort of thing. But a woman with an atopical pregnancy, it can kill her. Yeah. And so for people to criticize her.
Yeah, that's a legitimate medical procedure. That is not an abortion. That's not a therapeutic abortion, let's say.
And it sounds like she had to Google the hospital on what the laws were. And now she's getting all kinds of death threats, wishing her baby would, and her baby would die. And it's just horrible, the hatred. And again, horrible. Like the rally that we did for defund Planned Parenthood, there was people driving by, flipping us off, screaming, The hatred is just crazy.
A lady who we've had on this show numerous times, Michelle Herzog of Pro-Life Action Ministries, has had people try and run her down, like try and drive up on the curb.
Just a couple weeks ago.
And try and run her down. They've thrown objects at her. She's been spat on. She's had her life threatened. It's just crazy how people get about this topic.
Yep, the cops are there watching the pro-life group. They're like, I think you're on the wrong side.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I think they're there just to keep anything from happening. I really do. But
let's hope. Let's get back to John.
Let's get back to John and our water, because this is very important. So the website again is abortioninourwater.org, correct?
Correct. Abortioninourwater.org.
Okay. And this site is built and run by Liberty Counsel Action, and John is the president, and I commend you on the work you're doing. You heaped praise on us at the beginning of the show. You're the one who deserves the praise, because you're the one who's jumping on planes and going everywhere. And back when we were fighting Amendment 4...
And taking time out of his day off.
Taking time out of his day off and things like that. But also, when we were fighting Amendment 4, John and Matt Staver were traveling the state to talk to pastors to get them to do what they should have been doing naturally, which is addressing this with their congregations and working on letting people know just how wrong it is to think it's okay to kill a baby. And so I thank you, sir. Thank you very much for what you do. God bless you. And you have an open invitation anytime we can help and have you on this show. Please come back. Thank you very much. So, okay, now the FDA, obviously, they're at fault. Mm-hmm. The EPA's at fault. Laws have been broken. And that's what gets me. We have these laws, but people don't pay attention to them, and they just kind of like, oh, we'll just leave that be over there. How can we help? How can we make sure that they obey these laws? How can we get this out here in front of everybody and say, hey, you guys aren't doing your jobs? What can we do, John?
Well, three things. Number one, educate thyself, right? Go to the website, abortioninourwater.org, get the facts. We have a one-page executive summary. You can read the 87-page brief. So large or small, educate yourself. There's videos on there. So in whatever time you have, we have information in various sizes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Forms to consume, either news articles or what have you. That's number one. Number two, spread the word. Right? Tell other people. Tell your Sunday school. Tell other pro-life people. This is an issue that's literally right in front of our faces, but it's hiding.
Okay.
And Students for Life have been working on it, but it's like I'm like, let's sound the alarm. We have to let everybody know about this issue, right? You can't just hide this issue and talk about it. Mm-hmm. And then number three, we need to take action, because the government needs to take action at every single level, starting with Congress, secondly with the president. We're lobbying the president, asking him to ask the federal agencies to do their job, do the studies that are needed. And this is part of the problem. There's so many things we don't know. And we know this human waste is going into toilets. We know that's going into sewer systems and city water supplies. We know that they're not designed for it, but we don't know how bad the problem is. We don't know in what concentrations they're at. Different communities may have different concentrations, and so we don't know the health hazards of it, whether it's actually causing the Americans' infertility rate. We don't know anything. It kind of reminds me of smoking. It used to be, smoking's cool, no big deal. Johnny Carson smoking. You saw doctors smoking in black and white commercials. It was just like we were clueless.
You used to have athletes. You used to have athletes doing endorsements for cigarette brands.
Bruce, we just seen an ad for nicotine the other day on TV.
Yeah,
I was shocked.
Ronald Reagan, he's an actor, he was doing cigarette commercials.
Yeah.
So we were clueless back then. But eventually, it's like somebody goes, "Oh my God, this has tar. This has nicotine. This can cause lung cancer." And all of a sudden, the whole society woke up. That's what we're trying to do with this thing. And instead of the tobacco companies that were going, "Oh, no big deal. Don't be alarmist. This is okay." It's now the pharmaceutical companies that are lying to us, that are putting this junk in the market for purely profit motive, and really don't give a rip about what it's doing, both to the water supply and to women themselves in terms of the harm that's coming in.
And quite possibly men, because if it's affecting women, I've got to believe that these chemicals have some kind of negative effect on men as well.
Infertility.
Yes. They could. But we don't know. That's the whole thing we don't know. We do know that both men and women are seeing an increase in infertility, which could be because of mifepristone in the water. Now, in terms of taking action, abortioninourwater.org, there's several different ways. We have links where you can literally pay to actually send a fax to every single congressman, every single senator. We are going to be educating every single member of Congress and the agencies, but we need pressure from you all. If they keep hearing about this, it's a big deal. So lobby your members of Congress. If you know somebody in Congress, if you know your congressman or somebody else's, this is something that we need literally both parties to be aware of, and any congressman being lobbied is good. So you can take action on the site abortioninourwater.org.
Okay. Abortioninourwater.org. So you said we could you can send a fax, we can write letters, we can, I know from my term as Republican chairman for Seminole County, I've got access to several of the elected officials at state level and some of the national level. So I will be sitting down writing some letters for sure, and I know Vicky will do the same. But we want to encourage our listeners out there, get involved. This is real. This is not some plot to further stop abortion. Trust me, there's enough efforts going on to stop abortion, and God willing, we will end abortion in this country and eventually the world. But this is something that is affecting not just us, but our children and our grandchildren, and could affect us.
And whether you're pro-life or pro-choice or whatever you are, this affects you.
Yeah. And this could affect us for generations to come. You know, you look back, I was thinking about this the other day. There was an episode of, I'm going to geek out here a little bit, but it was an old episode of Star Trek. And they went to this planet, and the society had died off. And they were like, what happened? Well, at some point or another, they stopped reproducing.
Ah.
And it made me think, is that going to happen to us? Are we going to stop reproducing? I mean, because it could.
Wow.
It very well could. Hey, we've got another break, and we'll be back with our final segment. We've got John Stemberger, president of Liberty Counsel Action, talking with us about abortion in our water. We'll be right back with more Pro-Life Radio on a Sunday night on AM 950, FM 94.9, The Answer. We're back on a Sunday night, Pro-Life Radio on AM 950, FM 94.9, The Answer, streaming live, theanswerorlando.com. And we are very blessed to have John Stemberger, president of the Liberty Counsel Action Ministries, with us tonight. Vicky Cherry across from me. I'm Bruce Cherry. John, where do we go from here? I mean, we dodged a bullet with Amendment 4, but we know they're going to come back with another initiative of some sort.
Before you answer that, John, I just wanted to thank you again for coming on tonight. Your wealth of knowledge on this and a lot of subjects is just amazing to me, and I'm so grateful that you did take time out of your day to come on and share with us. So, like Bruce said, we would love to know what your thoughts on what is going to happen, what's happening here in Florida, what's happening in the country, what's happening in the world with abortion and the movement.
Well, first of all, we have a divided nation. We have states that have really restricted abortion almost completely and regulate the procedure very strictly as it should be. And then we have other states that are completely wide open, right, that are just, hey, the constitutional right. They're just, blue states that are not going to change unless we change the fabric of the culture. These abortion amendments are extremely disturbing, because they are for all the marbles. Once you put something and enshrine it in the Constitution, it doesn't change. So many states have done that. For the first time ever in this last election cycle, there were 3 states, Florida being the first one, that were actually to defeat one of these amendments. Mm-hmm. We also had Nebraska and South Dakota defeat their amendment as well. So that was a very exciting development. But generally speaking, overall, I think we're going to see a decline in surgical abortions. We see doctors dying off literally just because they're getting old, and they're fleeing this profession because of the stigma associated with killing other human beings, stigma which is very, very appropriate. So you're seeing doctors fleeing this area, quitting. They're realizing the bloody, grisly nature of what they do, and they're quitting, becoming pro-life. They're not getting into it. So we're seeing that whole process. And I think eventually we're going to see, abortion clinics are going to be like back alley, kind of like dirty places, right? They're going to be like these, and I think that's going to happen. It's happening kind of organically. But on the other hand, what's happening is an increase in chemical abortions where, quote unquote, we can get this in the mail, in violation of the law, by the way, with no doctor's approval, and it may or may not be scientifically accurate and medically accurate from Mexico or wherever, right? And so this is increasing more and more, which is sad because not only is it affecting our water, but it's damaging women more and more psychologically and hemorrhaging and all that. There's no one there to actually attend to them and find out. If there's no doctor involved, then you're really putting your life at risk because if you don't know the gestational age of the child from an ultrasound or you don't know whether you have an ectopic pregnancy, you could literally kill yourself taking these pills. So I think that that's what you're going to see nationwide, is an increase in chemical abortion, a decrease in surgical abortion, where it is. Now, the percentages differ based upon, in states where abortion is legal, you're going to have more surgical abortion. In states like Florida, where abortion is being restricted severely, you're going to have more chemical abortion because it's slippery. We can't track it, right? You can get it in the mail. And so there's a disproportionate play between the laws and how the abortions are taking place.
You know, with the chemical abortion, the thing that strikes me is that we know that a lot of abortions take place because people are hiding their sin, people are hiding their crime, those who are sex traffickers, human traffickers, because a woman who gets pregnant, well, for 9 months, she's not going to be able to, or for so many months, she's not going to be able to earn money for them, whether it's dancing or whatever it is that she does. So they take her in, have an abortion, and put her right back to work. But you've also got pedophiles that are hiding their crime and their sin.
Yep.
And now with chemical abortion, they no longer, I mean, for all intents and purposes, who says they have to take them to a Planned Parenthood place? They could just get a hold. And anything that's available is obviously going to be available on the black market. So somehow or another, they get their hands on these abortion pills. And then...
And the big lie is that, this is just like taking Tylenol. That is such a bunch of hogwash. That is a complete lie. No one's ever been rushed to the emergency room and hemorrhaging for days and days at a time and giving birth to a dead baby from taking Tylenol. It's just such a bunch of lies for them to even say that, but that's what the pharmaceutical industry is saying, and that's also what Planned Parenthood's been saying up till recently when they've been cornered on the issue.
Well, and the other thing, I know is that I think it's Kentucky, so they've outlawed abortion, except for they have people taking in the mail, the abortion pill. So now it's against the law for a doctor or an abortionist to kill your baby, but you can still kill your baby. And what is that doing? I mean, that's giving women this idea that it's okay as long as it's them that's making that choice. I don't understand that. Women are supposed to love their babies, take care of their babies. The womb should be the safest place for that baby. And it's the mothers are the ones that are making that decision.
Well, part of the reason that things like that happen is politics. People say, what's the job of a politician? And some people say, it's to represent the people. No, they only have one job in their minds, and that's to get reelected and get reelected and get reelected. And that is why I love our president, because he's not a politician, and he's not shooting to get reelected because this is it for him. He genuinely loves our country and loves people. So they put these laws in place that, okay, it's illegal for doctors to do an abortion, but it's not for the woman, because no politician wants to even discuss the possibility of prosecuting a woman for abortion. Now, they'll prosecute a woman who leaves her kid in the car on a hot day and the kid dies, but they won't prosecute her for abortion because it's politically explosive for them. It would end their careers.
Well, I think that this subject has so much more ramifications than we think about because it's about life, and all life matters. And so when we say it's okay for anybody to kill a child, wherever their location, it changes the world. It changes our culture.
And it's not okay. And that's the whole thing about this. It is not okay to end a life that God has ordained should be here. We don't have that right. We just don't have that right. John, I know I'm taking up your time here, so I get on my soapbox, and I apologize for that.
It's all right. It's all right.
Okay, so let's look back here. In 2023, medical abortions accounted for more than 64% of all abortions in the formal U.S. healthcare system. That's 2023. But we know that number is not accurate, because many of those chemical abortions were done at home. They weren't reported. As we talked about earlier in the show, women that showed up at the hospital with, bleeding, hemorrhaging, this is a miscarriage. It might have been misreported as a miscarriage, or the hospital willfully reported it as a miscarriage. So we know that number is a lot higher than that, and we've got to do something. So again, the website is abortioninourwater.org. And it's the site is built and run by Liberty Counsel Action Ministries, And we hope that you will go there and take action. And
so, John, what do you want to share with everyone before we let you get back to your day?
Just that, this is such a disturbing issue. It's something that nobody wants to talk about. Mm-hmm. And when I first heard about it, I thought this sounds like some kind of conspiracy or far-fetched thing. But the more I looked into the science and the medicine and the reality behind it, it's a horrible reality. It's not only destroying human life, but now it's poisoning the water, almost like in the Old Testament where, the whole water system is being tainted with blood. And it's just sad. And we just need to wake up. And clean water is something that everybody can get behind, no matter what your position is on any other issue. And we need to do that in America.
Absolutely.
Amen.
So, John, what is next? I know you've been to D.C. Do you have plans on going back there? And, have you been invited back for another conversation about this? Or
Yeah, they're confidential conversations. We're not kissing and telling, but we have high-level conversations with all the way up the ladder. And so we're continuing to meet and communicate. We found some friendly people who understand the issue or are very sympathetic to the issue. So, our next goal is to try to get a congressional hearing. The whole world needs to hear about this. It needs to be on CNN, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mainstream news. So we're looking for Congress to do a public hearing, call officials on the carpet. Why aren't you doing anything? Why aren't you studying this? What are the obstacles? You study every other chemical. You can't just flip on the switch and study mifepristone. Why? Why can't we do that, EPA? So those kinds of questions need to be asked publicly and before the elected officials. So we're trying to get a congressional hearing, and by your folks going to abortioninourwater.org and faxing congressmen, that's going to help us create energy and momentum and oxygen that we need to get this congressional hearing off the ground.
All right. Now, John, I realize also there's another chemical that's involved in the chemical abortion. Mifepristone is the main one that starves the baby and detaches it from the lining of the uterus. But the one that causes the baby to be expelled is misoprostol.
It does not have this. It does not have the same lethal effect at all.
Okay.
It just forces contraction.
Okay.
It's not.
So that one. While we don't want it in our water, that's not the one of the two that we're worried about. So
would that possibly affect pregnant women though, and cause them to go into early contractions?
Yeah, you wouldn't take it. You wouldn't take it before you take the other pill. Otherwise, that would be horrible. You give birth to a live child that's premature, which has happened. It's not a lethal synthetic drug that's going to continue on to the water supply like mifepristone. That's the issue.
Mifepristone. Okay, so we got to remember that one. Okay. John, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for taking time out to join us on a Sunday night, Pro-Life Radio. And for Vicky Cherry, I'm Bruce Cherry. Remember, this show is funded through your donations, and we hope that you will help us keep it on the air. We want to be here every week to share truth, to share knowledge, and to help change hearts. Pro-Life Radio. I'm Bruce Cherry. I want to thank John Stemberger of Liberty Counsel Action for being here. And remember, abortioninourwater.org is the website to go to. We'll be back again next Sunday night with more Pro-Life Radio on AM 950, FM 94.9, The Answer, streaming live on theanswerorlando.com. Good night.
Good night.